it fits. So the problem with school is one particular kind of situation. So extracurriculars like boxing, like sports, like swimming, like horseback riding, like all sorts of things, that's a way to think about, classic complaint about girls is they're too dramatic. Well, there's a thing at school called drama. There's a thing at school called theater. And maybe that's a place where they can be rewarded for being very, very expressive and very, very dramatic and very, very, because that's what that situation is. So looking for extracurricular or non-core curriculum kind of things in school and in those environments that allows your kid to be themselves instead of constantly trying to fight it and fight it and fight it. Calm down. No, don't calm down. Be outrageously dramatic on stage, right? So we help them when we help, you can punch kids in the face, but when you're wearing gloves and when they're wearing pads and when you're inside the ring, that's when we punch people in the face. Right?
No, that really makes sense.
And that's a different way of doing it than what we normally kind of do. We if kids seem too violent, we want to put them in classes for how to manage their emotions, not how to express themselves physically. When girls are dramatic, we want to try to calm them down instead of putting themselves in situations that allow themselves to express themselves emotionally, right?
And amplification also takes you to different stages, I'm assuming, right? In business and in life, because now that you touched that example of punching, I remember when I was a kid, I think I must have been my son's age. My dad put me in Taekwondo classes, not because I was a troublemaker, but I guess I must have said I'm interested in. I went, the first few days I learned certain moves, but the first fight, the first punch I felt in my face, I'm not proud to say, but I was like, that's it. I quit.
Not for me.
So that's not for me. So I guess, it also helps you move around, but make progress, right?
Well, and also I think that's a good one for kids is to give kids permission to experiment. So for example, some parents will tell a kid, you can't quit that sport because you said you were going to do it. Yeah. Well, they're a kid. They don't know what they're going to like and they aren't going to like. So once they discover it's not for them, and they don't need to be committed to something at that point. They didn't get married. They didn't there's no legal, so the other side, be committed. Okay. But also figure out what doesn't work and focus on something that does. We call that in business, we call that pivoting. But when a kid wants to pivot, we're like, oh, you won't stick with anything. You're a kid. You don't have to stick with 7-year-old soccer. If you don't like playing that when you're a kid, my oldest daughter didn't do any sports until there was a new swim team when a new teacher came in 6th grade. And she wasn't into group sports. She wasn't into sports related to, basketball, softball, volleyball, all those kind of things. She wasn't into team activities. She's not super coordinated. She doesn't like chaos. And then swimming is just like she found her thing and everything was amazing after that. And then my other daughter, she's probably tried and quit every sport there is. And then sometimes she goes back to it and sometimes she doesn't. And she probably isn't. Sports isn't her thing. So give them permission to experiment. Give them permission to quit. Have them try 15, 20, 30 things because that's the only chance you have. When you're forcing them to commit to something that isn't working for them,